Hey everybody, welcome to the View from the Pew Sports Show. I'm Chris. As always, I got Mike with me. Mike, how's it going tonight?
Chris, I'm doing great.
Yeah, keep going, Mike. I'll cut the first part out.
Yeah, I'm doing real good, Chris. Yep.
Yeah, fantastic. Good to see you, Mike. Well, let's talk about sports. And oh man, Browns. Their season continues. It's funny. There was some talk going into Sunday's game against the Saints. Hey, Jameis Winston used to play there. Is this his revenge game? He actually didn't play half bad, but the
No, they had
rest
a
of the
great
team
game.
didn't play good.
Yeah,
35-14.
yeah, they had a terrible fourth quarter, and I just don't know. Who knows how the rest of the season is going to go. Because it's obviously the playoffs are, I would think, pretty much out of the question, and and they've already made a trade or two, and so it'll be interesting to see how it goes. And but when the Browns play the Steelers, that's like a season unto itself. So and really, when you look at what the Browns are left playing for, that's probably one way if they could beat the Steelers, and it's a home game, that would be something. But I think that's a pretty tall task. But who knows?
Well, and the other problem I see too. Well, let's first start with the Browns, and because we're going to talk about the Steelers in a little bit too. But
Yeah,
with the Browns, I always look at where are you building off of? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to build for your season?
yeah,
Interesting. Mike Vrabel was in the sidelines on Sunday,
that's
and
right.
he had an earpiece. And
Yeah.
some people were kind of putting two and two together and saying, "Hey, could this be them really taking a look at the possibility of Vrabel possibly replacing Stefanski?"
Yeah, I can't believe Stefanski, why he's still the Browns coach, would agree to that. So, and I think I read something where they dispelled that, Chris. So, although Vrabel does remind me of an AFC North kind of coach, he's a tough coach, and that's what you've got. Those kind of coaches in AFC North, they command discipline, they get discipline, and but your guess is as good as mine. The way this Brown season, the rest of it's going to go. If they could beat Pittsburgh, like I said, would be a tall order. But at least they've given them something to hang their hats on because they're really not playing for a whole lot else. At least they're not playing for the playoffs. I mean, that would take a Herculean effort for them to make them. They'd all. I would think they'd have to run the table, and even then, that wouldn't be a certainty. So
Well, and I think realistically, you can't look at that. You just look at where you built for next year.
yeah,
I'm looking
right.
again. I don't think Jameis Winston was a problem on Sunday.
No,
But what do? Do you give Dorian Thompson Robinson a try? It looks like they haven't gone to that direction yet. I
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, and again,
yeah,
Winston's producing, so Winston's not necessarily the problem. But
yeah.
you know, what are you doing for next year? I mean, is Winston part of the answer? I mean, I would still think your first round pick has got to be a quarterback. So what do? Do you run Robinson out there? Say, hey, is he someone that could potentially start or maybe a backup
Right,
next year? I'm not sure
right.
where that's going. I will tell you, a lot of quarterbacks should get drafted early. That's how it usually always goes. I'll tell you
Yeah,
one thing, Mike. The thing to be interesting is one guy we haven't talked about that much. What about that Travis Hunter kid from Colorado?
yeah. Yeah,
I
true. Yeah, I mean, there's at the top of the draft. There's some really nice players. Uh, who knows, Chris? The Browns now they have a question mark at left tackle because Warren Jones, who they moved to left tackle to replace Jed Wills, is out for the season, and so we don't know if Wills will be at left tackle against the Steelers. And so there's some question marks with that position, and it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the season goes and their mindset. If they get to the point where, hey, we need to rest some of these injured guys. I mean, we're not playing for the playoffs, or we're going to rest some guys, shut some guys down who have some lingering injuries, and then what their focus is going to be in the offseason. They've got a lot of holes, and the other thing too is they really have to hit a home run in the draft because of the pay slotting, because they could get these guys on their first year or their opening contracts at a bargain, and that's what they need to do because they are cash strapped in the cap for the next 2 years because of Watson's contract. So they're going to have to get really creative and hit a lot of home runs in the draft to fill some of those question marks, because I don't think they can just go out in free agency and wheel and deal. They might be able to pull off one thing or two, but I don't think they're going to have to. They can be aggressive in free agency with, the cap constraints that they're looking at at least the next 2 years.
Well, in my opinion, here's one thing you can look at as a Browns fan. Okay, yeah, the rate we're going, Browns top 3, top 5, maybe even top first overall pick. I'd say maybe if you want to be ambitious, you say, hey, maybe there's someone in the top 10. I mean, wherever they might be. Well, you can decide. What do you think about this, Mike? If a Travis Hunter's there and Jameis Winston looks okay, do you say, all right, maybe Jameis Winston isn't our franchise quarterback for here on out, but Travis Hunter you could pair up with Jameis Winston? You know what I mean? That's a scenario that could be out there. And again, that just depends if Hunter's available or not. If that's not the case, I definitely think they go for a quarterback in the first round.
And the other thing too, Chris, that I think we kind of dispel, because I think some of these guys got extensions, but we got to know what the front office situation is going to be after this season. If there's going to be any shakeups in the front office, if Kevin Stefanski, who just got a 5-year extension, is going to be the head coach, there's a lot of question marks to be answered. So who knows? Your guess is as good as mine.
It's interesting. The Browns have been kind of patient so far this year. I look at a team like the Jets. Jets fired the GM today. So they fired the GM.
Phil Savage is back as the interim GM. How about that?
Yeah.
And Phil did a good job with the Browns. I like the job he did with the Browns. It was, unfortunate that, how they parted ways there. But, I think he did a good job. And, the Browns had quite a few Pro Bowlers when he was the GM. And then the same with John Dorsey. John Dorsey was building a pretty good Browns roster. And then, again, they parted ways. And look what he's doing with Detroit.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the future is there. Savage is the interim GM. I'm not sure how wide the Jets are going to catch in that to find a new GM.
Right.
Maybe Savage, if he doesn't have to be a guy for the Browns, to make a move. Yeah, there seems to be a lot of unknowns. And I'll tell you, I don't know if we can answer those unknowns in the last 2 games of the season. You know what I mean? Yeah. If the Browns win a couple games, does that mean Stefanski should be safe? I don't know. I don't either. I think there's a lot that we need to figure out. And I'll give you my pick for the game. But again, Browns and Steelers are playing each other. So let's talk about the Steelers for a little bit. Steelers continue to impress. I'll tell you, I'm always a Steelers fan. Anytime you Ravens, it's a good thing. I think the interesting thing about the game, the red zone offense didn't look that great. They had 6 field goals, but that's good enough to win. Overall, good win. I like the fact that their teams, even when not playing their best, I think some points on the field. I think there was some opportunities for them to even do better than they did, and they ended up winning the game. Mike, I cannot understand life of the Ravens still have a good football team. Steelers have beat the Ravens 8 of the last 9 times.
I did not know that. That's interesting.
Have a good goal.
Yeah.
And Lamar Jackson has always struggled against the Steelers. It's just a weird, funky thing. Derrick Henry, I know Henry hasn't played the Steelers as much, but Henry hasn't had as much success against them as he's had, of course, with other teams. So it's just like, I don't know what it is. It's out there.
Well, the Steelers the Steelers are sitting in the catbird seat. They're really looking at, the Bengals are not having a great year. The Browns are having a horrible year, and the Ravens aren't as good, I don't believe, at least at this point of the season, as they have in past years. So the Steelers are, they're doing the job, and I would think they're a good shot to win the division. If things stay the way they are.
Well, I look at Thursday as a taking care of business game. On paper, the Steelers are a better team than the than the Browns. But these Thursday night games, Mike, are funky as all get out. And I'm hearing that the weather in Cleveland is going to be a little funky too. Yeah. I'll tell you, I still think the Steelers have enough talent to win the game, but sometimes I wish the Steelers would win these games by 50. I'd be happy if they win by a field goal. It's not going to be
Yeah.
pretty, and it's not based on the fact that the Steelers stink or the Rams going to play great. I think the weather's going to get in the way, and I think Thursday Night Football, I know why they do it. Amazon gave a lot of money. You got to follow the money. I get that. But Thursday night games are usually not good affairs. And I think with the weather, I think with a 4-day work week, I think the fact that Steelers had an emotional win over the Ravens, they're not going to look great. And obviously the Browns aren't going to look great either. It's not going to be a good game to watch, in my opinion.
I think that could be a trap game, Chris, because you think about it, the Browns are struggling. And as much I remember as a football player myself, you tell yourself you got to get up for what you deem a lesser opponent. And it's hard to do. It's one thing to think it. It's another thing to go out and play and play hard against that, what you feel is a lesser opponent. And again, you're coming off a great win over the Ravens, and you're on a short week going to Cleveland. I'll be anxious. And that, again, going back to what I said, the Browns, this would be something they could hang their hat on because obviously the playoffs are probably out of the question. But who knows? But I think early on, if the Steelers would get up early, I think that would be important for them. If the Browns can hang around playing at home for 4 quarters, that could be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible there's a lot of emotion there. Like I said, the Steelers, they've had a couple really good offensive games. It's funny, the Ravens don't have a great defense this year. I think I saw in the Ravens they were a little bit more fired up. I think the Steelers weren't really executing the red zone. It happens. And again, they're not going to score 30 points every game for the rest of the season. I'd like to see how they bounce back. But again, man, they never play super well in these Thursday night games. I'd say the Steelers by 3, just based on it's a Thursday night game. If it was a Sunday at 1, blowout. But, man, these Thursday night games, you just never know, man. It's rough.
And I'm going to take the coward's way out. I'm not making a pick. As a Browns fan, I think the Steelers obviously are just better. But who knows? Like I said, the Browns this is something they could be playing for. So who knows how it'll go.
Well, and you talk about the Steelers being a potential contender in the AFC. Bills beat the Chiefs on Sunday. So right now, the Chiefs are still top of the AFC. Steelers and Bills are 1 game behind them. So, look, you can't win out necessarily. You're going to have a miscue. The Steelers are in a weird position right now. They're 8-2. They beat 2 really good teams in Washington and Baltimore now. You've got 2 winnable games coming up with the Browns, and then you play the Bengals. If you can get past those 2, you're 10-2. And again, in the way these funky NFL playoffs go, if you get that top 1 or maybe 2nd seed, you've got the potential to get there. I'd like to see the Steelers at least make the number 2 seed, but again, if you do that, you gotta win. And again, stop points don't matter. It could be 3-0, but you gotta find a way of winning that game.
Well, I'll tell you what, if they could get home field advantage, that's paramount in the playoffs. Especially if they could, say somewhere down the road, they could surpass the Chiefs and have the Chiefs or the Bills coming into Pittsburgh. But, there's a lot to be decided in the second half of the season.
I'm asking some of my other hosts. I wanted to ask you about this. I'm a big fight fan. What was it? Jake Paul, Mike Tyson on Netflix. I don't know if you heard, lots of streaming issues. Apparently, it was hard to get a regular stream of that game. A lot of people are worried about what this means for the NFL because remember, NFL's got 2 games on Christmas Day, 2 really good games. You got the Chiefs and the Steelers, and you got the Ravens and the Texans. Man, NFL's going to look bad if they don't get good video quality in those games. Because it was pretty rough during the Tyson fight.
That's true. Yeah. Who knows? Everything changes so quickly today, Chris. Who knows?
I like streaming. I like the advancements, but especially when you start putting major sports on streaming, you got to make sure you get your stuff right. And it'll be really interesting. I still understand that in the local markets, a local station will have to pick up the game. It's like in Cleveland. You can watch the Browns game on somewhere regular TV. But again, not everyone can do that around the country. And, man, when you put what probably looked like the best game in the AFC this year on Netflix. You better hope the video quality works, or there's going to be a lot of angry people out there. It'll be really interesting. A couple of things I wanted to mention. And again, first outdoor show in a while. It's good. I don't know if I could do an outdoor show in months. I'll probably get a lot colder, but I'm enjoying the night, at least for tonight.
Yeah.
Buckeyes still rolling along. They got Indiana this week. But what did you think about the game last week?
I thought that was very workmanlike win. They kind of started off slow, and then they caught a gear and looked pretty good overall. Indiana, they've got that explosive offense coming in, so that'll be one of the tests for Ohio State's defense, because I still have some. I know that statistically Ohio State's defense is ranked really high in the nation, but I've seen some things where teams that can pound the ball at them, they're making the tackles quite a few yards down the way, and you keep those sticks moving, keep Ohio State's offense off the field. That's not a good thing. So this will be a key test, because this is probably, next to Oregon, the best offense they've faced so far in the season. So we'll see. It's in Columbus, another noon game. Boy, they've got a bunch of noon games. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think the Buckeyes are getting better every week. Some of the questions I had have been answered. They still have a few out there. And I think, I was thinking this the other day, Chris. I don't know. I realize Oregon's number one. But, I don't know if there's any one team you can say, man, this team's just going to destroy anybody they play in the playoffs. I don't think it's that kind of year. In fact, I saw if Oregon gets to the Big Ten title game, Ohio State would be a touchdown favorite. So that tells you a lot about that game that, that Oregon won earlier on their home field. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. It could be one of those years where if you have a team that gets hot in the playoffs, that might carry them all the way. So, I'm hoping it's going to be Ohio State. But, right now, I think there's probably 3 or 4 teams I think could win it all.
Yeah, definitely. Very interesting. It's interesting to see what happens there. So, keep moving forward on this. I'm intrigued, though, Mike. I got to tell you, Will Howard. I was thinking about this today. He's had a pretty good year for Ohio State.
He's had a very good year.
You think he's an NFL quarterback? I was wondering about that.
Yeah, I think he'll get because I think if you can do that at Ohio State. And I think going into last week, now again, it fell off a little bit last week, but I think he was close to 80% completion percentage rate, which was tremendous, much better than when he was at Kansas State. So, and I realized last week, I think he was around 63% in that game, but still, he's, to be between 75 and 80% for the season completion percentage, that's pretty good. Yeah, I do think, somebody will draft him. Absolutely.
He can develop into kind of a Josh Allen light. He doesn't have the build of a Josh Allen, but he plays kind of like a Josh Allen, where he's bigger.
He's still got pretty good size. Pretty good size. Yeah,
he can throw and he can run too. Almost kind of reminds me of a younger Big Ben or a John Elway in the way they run. They're not like 4.2 40 speed, but they can do things. They can be pretty impressive out there. So,
getting back to Saturday, Chris, I do think another key for Ohio State is how well that offensive line played, because they've got those 2 tremendous backs. But you know what? I guarantee it's going to come up. You're going to have some 3rd and 1, maybe some 4th and 1s, and you got to get that to keep the sticks moving. So you keep your explosive offense on the field and Indiana's explosive offense off the field.
Ohio State's 13-point favorites. So, people are thinking Ohio State's going to win this. Man, you look at Indiana. No one thought they were going to be where they were. What a chance for Indiana to define their program. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think that they got a chance on Sunday. On Saturday. Could you imagine if they came in and beat Ohio State? Even if they lost that game by a close margin, still everyone thinks the world of Indiana. Could you imagine somehow they win and beat Ohio State? What that mean for that program? It's amazing.
Well, I do think Indiana's really good. I do think they benefited. It's just the way the schedule worked out for them this year. I think they benefited so far from a pretty easy Big Ten schedule. So we'll see how it plays out. We'll see if that's a little bit of fool's gold or if that's the real deal that plays the Buckeyes in Columbus on Saturday. So, I don't know. But like I said, I think they're a good football team. We'll find out just how good they are when they go up against Ohio State.
I would have to say, and like I said before, I'm going to start calling you Kirk Herbstreit because you don't like to make the picks of the games. I'm thinking if I had to pick, I'd maybe go with Ohio State by 7. I think it's going to be close, but I think the fact it's at Ohio State gives Ohio State the advantage. I don't know, man. I think it would be maybe a coin flip if I was at Indiana, though.
Yeah. Well, here's my pick on the game. I'll give you one on this one, Chris. I think Ohio State will win by 20 points.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Well, when you talk about a statement, that would definitely prove a statement. And the funny thing, and we were kind of confused about this earlier. They give the top 4 seeds the conference winners, so that adds more intrigue to that Big Ten title game. Because if Ohio State say they make the Big Ten title game and they lose, the best seed they could have is like 5th seed. So it adds a little bit more credibility to that Big Ten title game. I'll tell you.
I tell you what, I think this could happen, and people have mentioned this. Ohio State and Oregon could play 3 times this year, and that's highly likely. If they win the Big Ten title game and Oregon, gets bumped down on a seed and they run the table, and they could play 3 times, and I could see that. I think they're both good enough where that could happen.
I still have questions if it's good for college football, but I think you and I have both talked about this, and we know now that what's good for college football is the money. So
money talks, Chris. That's how it works.
Yes, money definitely does talk here. Finally, I wanted to mention we don't talk a lot of basketball, but my goodness, I think we can make an exception for the Cavaliers. They started out the year 15-0. They played the Celtics. The game is going to be played after we record this. So, but man, even if they lose tonight, 15 in a row to start the year is amazing.
Yeah, I think Kenny Atkinson is pushing all the right buttons with the Cavs. And the nice thing is they're staying healthy, and that's always been a problem. That's going to be a question mark. They need to stay healthy. But I tell you what, those 5 that they put out on the floor, that's and it seems like they mesh very well. I think Kenny Atkinson has brought out the best in that team. You start out the season with as many wins as they have. I mean, they're sitting pretty good because I don't think that's the kind of team that can go on when an extended losing streak. I really don't. I think if they stay healthy, they're going to be right up there.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. Again, one game, and you never know. You win 15 in a row, you're bound to lose one here or there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put too much stock in the Celtics game, but I'm curious to see how they match up. If the Cavs win or lose, I'm not willing to bury them or give them the NBA title based on time alone. But you always think about what happens when they play. And I think that's one of the questions out there. The Cavs have that 15 when, start to the year. The Celtics have always looked good.
Yeah.
What happens when they play? I think this is going to be the first answer to that question, Sam.
Right. And I do think, a key has been the play of Darius Garland. He's been tremendous. Yeah. And the Cavs, it's like, man, they've got a lot of weapons, a lot of scoring weapons on that team. So it's fun. They're fun to watch too, and it's a team that can grow together.
I think Atkinson's got more out of Mobley offensively, which has helped.
Yeah.
I think the offense overall has improved, not just Mobley.
Yes. Oh yeah.
And again, the NBA defense is starting to get a little bit optional. That's my beef about the NBA right now. But hey, when you score enough, your defense can be optional at times. And their defense isn't shut down, but it's enough to win them games. So
right, absolutely, couldn't agree more.
Should be good.
Yep.
Again, we're deferring to Mahoney Matters on deep Youngstown coverage, but we're in the quarterfinals now of the Ohio playoffs. Man, I hear we got 3 local teams at
least?
Yes,
we do, absolutely, and we've got 2 that are I think they're gonna be in the state finals. I really am. Obviously, Ursuline plays this week. I think they're a heavy favorite to win their game. And then South Range and Poland. They're going to meet. The other Northeast 8 teams are going to meet in a rematch. South Range is undefeated. Poland's been playing great football. So the winner of that game is going to be in the state Final Four. So really good for the greater Mahoning Valley area.
Yeah, it's always fun for the area when you got 2 local teams playing the quarterfinals because we always talk when we plan this coverage. We're like, hey, we're gonna have any local teams make it. And sometimes you don't know. Well, hey, we got at least one Mahoning Valley team for sure. It's going to be in next week, and like you said, Ursuline comes in as a favorite, so hopefully we'll have at least 2. So
I think we will.
Very good. Anything else happening in sports that we should talk about?
There's a lot of good things, and I'll tell you what. High school basketball season is right around the corner, so it won't be long. Right within the next week, the girls' basketball teams will open their seasons, and then the boys are a week behind that. So, we go right from football to basketball. But hopefully, like you said, we're going to have a couple Mahoning Valley teams advancing on the football playoffs into next week, and hopefully beyond that.
Yeah, it should be good. All right. Well, for Mike, this is Chris. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for your patience. I know we had once or twice where we had big noise come in. Again, we're taping this outside. Nature gets in the way, but hopefully you're able to enjoy us. And thanks for checking us out. Have a great night, everybody.